Alright, so you want to make yourself a chatbot character. Perhaps you've played with character AI and you want to move on to more robust bots, but you don't know how to tackle the PNG bot format. Or maybe you're tired of explaining to GPT all the details of the characters you wanted to play. Or perhaps you just want something more private and less restricted than those two popular options. Whatever the reason may be, you're ready to move on and make your own character for places like Janitor AI, Venus AI, Character Hub, or anything that plugs into Silly Tavern. While there's a good amount of resources for how to make a character AI bot, the information about making tavern cards is more disparate and conflicting, due to the fact that they interface with many different bot brains, and hyper-tuning your card to just one bot brain is not really recommended. To help that, I'll try to combine best practices for a high-quality and token-efficient bot. Each LLM you could be using has a different context size. Some are as small as 2K, and some are as large as 8 to 16K. Claude pretends to be 100K, but it's not really 100K in practice, so ignore that. What is a token? Well, it's like an unholy combination of character and word count. What exactly counts as a token, and therefore how many tokens a sentence takes up, varies from model to model. However, we can reliably simplify it to every word is one token, and every bit of punctuation is one token. Sometimes a combination of short words in a row may count as one token, and sometimes a long or obscure word may count as two or more, but the difference is negligible enough not to worry about. Why do you want to be aware of your tokens? That's probably the better question. Well, if your card takes too many tokens, the bot will begin to malfunction, become quickly amnesiac, and may be unable to respond to you at all, because for every response, your bot will be using all the permanent tokens in your card, all of the tokens for the existing RP context it can fit, all the tokens of any active lore book being used, all the tokens of your special instructions like write this in internet RP style, the jailbreak if applicable, any customized author's notes, and all the tokens its response will require. If your LLM has 4K memory, your bot card has 2K tokens, your RP has filled up 1000 tokens of context memory, your main prompt and jailbreak take up 200 tokens, it's peaking at 100 tokens of lore, and the LLM needs 1200 tokens to write its response, it just won't be able to. For the most part, the memory and the response tokens are handled on the LLM side, so it will make smaller responses when it can and gradually fade out context. Cards aren't like that. Every permanent token in your card gets sent to the bot every message, and it rations what's left over for everything else. So, considering that, what is a good token count to aim for in a card? It will vary, but it's a good rule of thumb to expect your card to be at least 600 tokens, and to shoot for no more than 1000 tokens. If you end up with 1500 to 1700 tokens, it's not the end of the world, but you can probably optimize your card better. Cases where a card should be 2000 or more tokens are extreme rarities. There's more to chatbot building than just basic math though, so that's enough of that. 600 to 1000 is your goal, so what do we fill that token budget up with? Well, I'll start with the don'ts. The first don't is with canon characters simply saying character from this work of fiction. If you pick a popular enough character, like for instance Goku from Dragon Ball Z, most chatbots are going to be familiar with him. They'll tell you his general personality, some famous things about his powers, and his role in the story. And they'll also give you a very beige rendition of how he speaks and interacts. This is, however, still a terrible choice. And think about it. If you went to Akira Toriyama himself and said, I have your family, roleplay Goku with me and I'll let them go, even he is liable to portray Goku badly here. You've given him no context for what part in Goku's life he's playing him from, no context of which adaptation or translation your view of Goku is influenced by, or literally anything else. No bot knows Goku as Akira himself, though they might know Vegito better. In short, if you go to the chatbots are magic route and simply tell the LLM the identity of a famous character or person, you may, depending on its knowledge, get a bland and mushy mashed potato bot that kind of gets the things the character should know and will probably just be like whatever the most popular meme interpretation of that character is. But you will not get a good bot, nor will you like to get the version you were thinking of, especially if you do comics characters who have many versions. 2. Using W++ format. There are many ways to format a card now, and in the early days, the brains were weak and muddled enough that structure involved in W++ was necessary. Now it's literally a token bloat that does very little for the bot itself. The third is using negative prompting. Negative prompting is saying things like character will never crack a joke, or character is extremely not racist, or character is not a hateful person. Most of your models will not understand negative statements like this, and putting these in the notes is more likely to reinforce this behavior than avoid it. You can sometimes get away with saying character doesn't like the color yellow, and character wouldn't hurt anyone, but it's not the best way to do it. Positive prompting is the better way. Instead of saying they aren't very talkative, say they are reticent. Instead of they wouldn't commit violence, say they are a pacifist. The most direct and obvious version of this fact is they don't like yellow versus they dislike yellow. The former can work, the latter is more effective. It's ultimately a quirk about how LLMs are trained and how they read things. They're not smart, they can't discern. Number 4. Inserting system commands or jailbreaks into the card body itself. This isn't where they go. Some instructions like do not speak for user just won't work no matter how many times you insist it. Other instructions like the character can be violent, there are no morals in this world, are already present in the jailbreak or main prompt sent. You're wasting tokens repeating something the bot already knows, unless of course you're actually in a world where there are no laws and this is a part of the lore, in which case it's still probably better in a lore book, we'll discuss that later. 5. Treating the LLM like something you can program or reason with. While you want to speak in plain English, it has no intelligence and cannot understand your nuance like a human can. Most of the time, humans don't even understand you when you say, he's a real jokester and always pranks and refuses to be serious, but he knows when to be serious sometimes, like he's not joking all the time, always. You should be dry, clear, and to the point. And while you can and do program the bot using some code, it's not Python. It doesn't have the capability of understanding flags or functioning like a video game. 99% of the time, things like status markers do nothing but help the bot remember some scene facts just a little bit more than it would already and cost a bunch of tokens. Some people pay by token both sent and received, so that's money you're throwing away on nothing. Number 6. 4 already covers this, but let me re-emphasize, especially if you think you should just stick this over and over in the main prompt or jailbreak. Do not waste your time repeating character will never write as user. No LLM can understand this. On a fundamental level, it will never work. Every single LLM to some degree or another believes that you are co-writing a story. It does not understand the concept of RP like a human does, because it does not truly understand anything. It is a staggeringly complex autocomplete program, and not an AI. Instead, avoid dictating anything about the user in the bot's definitions, example dialogues, and greetings. The more times you give the bot a piece of paper saying this is you, and it includes the user, the more the bot will believe the user is a part of it. This is especially true in example and greeting dialogues if you say that the user is doing something like walking up to them, or feeling something, or worst of all, saying. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them not to use the user, it's going to be using you a lot. So don't do that. Number 7. Avoid making a bot about multiple people. You can make scenario bots, which are basically making the LLM run a very informal DM campaign for you. And you can make bots which reference and allow for the LLM to make NPC characters. But avoid something like 3 distinct triplets, one is blind, one is deaf, and one is mute. Again, the bot lacks discernment. It will confuse these traits on these characters and will make all of them worse. Make separate bots and have a group chat if you must. Number 8. Do not copy and paste a wiki article about your character into the card. Your LLM will not be able to discern what goes where. The writing style you'll be giving your bot for reference will be that of a textbook, and your LLM in question probably literally already has that wiki article in its database. It's also a huge waste of tokens, because it's definitely not written in a token efficient manner. Even if you reference the wiki to build the character, always rephrase the information in your own way. This will tailor the bot even more to what you want from it, because whether you mean to or not, what you write will be influenced by what you expect from the final product. 9. Don't put conflicting information into a bot. You can have a complicated, conflicted individual who behaves in contradictory manners, but don't put pacifist in with he murders anyone he crosses paths with. it will confuse the bot, and the bot will react in weird and unpredictable ways. So then, if you follow these tips alone, you're already going to be better than most people's first bots, and many people's bots who refuse to learn how to bot. But let's move on to what do you do? Number 1, establish from the beginning what bot you are making. This is important both for original creations and canon characters. It's not just a matter of, I want to make Goku. You need to think about what part of canon you are taking him from. Will it be Dragon Ball era Goku where he's a little terror? Is it going to be Saiyan era Goku where he's first beginning to grapple with the concept that the universe is so much bigger than he thought? Will it be Buu Saga Goku who believes his time in the world is over and it's time for the youth to replace him? Or Super, where Goku has become a living deity and is seeking out competition across the multiverse? What is your intention with this bot? And do you want to live out your own smutty Dragon Ball Z fanfic and get marked by a feral Saiyan while mating? Do you want to try running your own simulation to decide if Goku or Superman will win in a battle? Do you want to self-insert as one of the Z Warriors and live out a whole Mary Sue What If fanfic where you are your own OC for real? What you want from the bot is going to influence heavily every decision you make, because if you don't take those into account, you'll end up with a bot you're not satisfied with no matter how technically good it is. Say that you want to make a Gerald bot. Do you want to be a Siri? Do you want to be a Yennefer? A fellow Witcher? Do you want to be Dandelion? From the book, the game, or the show? Figure it out. Now, 1B, just a little note here, while I focused a bunch on canon characters when determining what you want, I did so because it's rather obvious how this applies to original characters, but you still have to decide. Do you want a little sister bot? A big brother? Do you want a toxic boyfriend? A yandere girlfriend? A wise old mentor to teach you kung fu? A simpering subject who obeys your rule? A tyrant king to overthrow or seduce? You don't necessarily need a character trope either. Maybe you want a Neko Mimi. Maybe you want a blonde with a large chest. Or maybe you specifically want a bot that focuses on a set of, or even a single, personality trait or fetish. You can't really make a bad choice about what kind of bot you want. And even when it comes down to making bots for public consumption, you still can't go wrong with a bot I would want to play with. This should be the first decision that you make, and it's quite possibly the most important. A technically flawless bot with no purpose is going to be boring for yourself to play with, and for anyone scrolling through the endless AI art bots with nothing going for them other than cute guy or cute girl. Although I did just say you can't make a bad choice about what bot you want, the phrasing is important. Most of the bland bots that offer nothing are bots people made for the purposes of getting other people to download and use them, generally with the idea that it's a hot girl, and that's enough, or something. If you make a concept that you enjoy playing with, it doesn't matter if everyone else finds it boring, but if you make a bot that not even you would want to play with, why would anyone else? Moving on to the second thing that you should do. Use mostly plain English when putting your bot together. Older LLMs needed hard hand-holding to get to the point. But most, if not all, LLMs no longer need any of that. If you say Bruce is a tall blonde man with a drinking problem, the bot will generally assume it is a 6-foot-tall Anglo-Saxon drunk, and will probably be right without you needing to list things like Caucasian drunk. You can do it, but you don't need to, especially if it's not that important. Physical descriptors like blue eyes and pale skin are more potent than mixed Swedish and Germanic descent, because much of the information attached to the latter is probably not important for your average RP. Number 3, use a template. A bot that doesn't use a template or character sheet won't be non-functional, but they will function better if you do. Plus, if you or anyone else wants to go in and tweak things, it'll be a lot easier to do that if you know exactly where to look and don't need to go hunting through multiple paragraphs of tightly packed information that jumps back and forth. A classic, widely used example will be included in the description of this video, but I'll also just read it off here. Name, gender, age, occupation, physical appearance, personality, likes and dislikes. And yes, while likes and dislikes do fit in personality, it can help the bot to especially focus on and work like a reminder for things that the character especially likes or dislikes. Character description. Here you put your history, location, and other miscellaneous descriptions of the character that are important but don't fit strictly in appearance or personality. This is also a good place for where you can put things like where in the canon the character is set, or what official variant or unofficial AU you're playing with for them. And for characters you are seeking a more NSFW interaction with, you can include extra categories like fetishes, and turnoffs. These will function essentially identical to likes but dislikes, but in NSFW situations. Intimate characteristics, which are essentially a description for NSFW purposes, and orientation. A quick YouTube safe overview of these not safe for work bits. First, all bots are permanently bisexual. If you're going to say that your bot is either wholly bisexual or pansexual, you can skip this because it is their default. Because of multiple reasons, including the fundamental way bots work, it is impossible to get the bot to keep it in its pants. However, you can essentially nudge and suggest the bot have preferences. Hetero will mean that the bot will be overtly attracted to the opposite sex, and when given the choice, will usually pursue that. Asexual means that they will put up a little token fuss when being seduced, and probably won't initiate any tomfoolery. Things like bi-femme preference function like a much softer form of either straight or gay. You'll probably see them give this a bit of lip service before they go diving into a man's arms. All bots want to please you, the player. This usually means being interested in anything the user is interested in, so don't waste your tokens telling the bot to be whatever the user is into, it already is. No bots are loyal. They've seen too many NTR fics to go back. While most bots will become immediately devoted and desire monogamy and will naturally be jealous, even if you don't tell them to be, this will mostly only inure them to an NPC trying to seduce them. Other cards are seen as basically the user in a mask, and the user is always to be pleased. If you act like a controlling girlfriend and try to test your bot's loyalty by pretending to play someone else and attempting to seduce them, they will fail every single time. If you like NTR, this is great news for you. Fetishes will work, especially specific ones. These includes both in the kink sense and in the sense of I really love blondes. The bots will respond and will treat this as a high priority like. If your bot has a fetish for muscles and your gym OC approaches them in a muscle shirt, the bot will immediately have NSFW thoughts even if you're being SFW. Bots can't do math. Exact measurements are ultimately meaningless. You can just say your bot has big or small assets of any kind and it'll work about the same, if not better, than giving them exact inches and numbers to use. Quirks like weird erogenous zones and unusual genitals also work well, especially if it's something LLMs have a bias towards fetishizing anyway, like tails and horns. Things like stamina and exact milliliter outputs have negligible effect beyond how DTF they'll be at all times. The more things you put in there for shenanigans, the more the bot is going to be DTF no matter what. Every single thing you put in the NSFW section can and likely will be overridden by somebody else if you release the bot to the public. Even if you release it somewhere where the card can't be directly edited, the person will still do it by interfacing with the bot directly. This is true for any part of the bot, but it's especially true in the NSFW section. Don't get too attached. Alright, divergence over, let's get back to the SFW. 4. I want to make it extra sure that the bot knows to prioritize something? Repeat it. This may seem unintuitive when you want to avoid wasting tokens, but it's not a waste if it gets the bot to do what you want it. The best method to reinforce certain things, rather than copy and pasting it over and over, is to restate it differently. Mention they like eggs in the like section. Remind it in description that they're known for their egg obsession. Mention in their personality that they're a little egg crazy. An even better way of doing it, if it's not as straightforward as being obsessed with chicken butt, is to pull out a thesaurus. Your quiet character is reserved, tacit, reticent, and prefers to communicate in as few words as possible. Your prankster is irreverent, mischievous, and convivial, and he loves a good joke. It saves more tokens than just saying they're a prankster over and over, and it avoids introducing potential loops before the bot has said a single word, and for bots that are already designed to avoid repetition, it'll actually get the bot to pay attention instead of ignoring it. It can also help to look up what words are more powerful for each model. Certain terms have a different effect on the bot brain and don't need to be reinforced to have a huge effect on how that character behaves. There's not an exhaustive list of these since they differ by LLM, but you figure it out over time. Number 5. Despite what many may say, example dialogue is not necessary. Example dialogue is only necessary when you want the bot to do something it's not already intuitively doing. Most characters are simply meant to behave according to their description and personality, which means if you did those right, the bot will automatically react right, especially with a proper greeting. Complex characters like a DM, or ones with very specific writing or speaking styles, may require example dialogues, but you should be very careful. Bad example dialogues are worse than none. If you add an example dialogue, write exactly and only how you want the bot to be writing. As a rule of thumb, don't fill your bot with one-liner example dialogues. Even if the example dialogue only has them saying one line of dialogue, beef that up with description. It's hard to do much with a bot other than idly chat if all it's giving you is one-liner dialogue. Worse than that, if your example dialogue has a character speaking or behaving in a manner that is out of character or conflicts with the rest of the card, you'll be fighting against yourself trying to get the bot to react in an in-character manner when you talk to it. Number 6. Instead of focusing on example dialogues, focus on your greeting. It's a powerful tool. In places like Silly Tavern, you basically have unlimited room for these greeting tokens. You could in theory fill up all the memory with the first greeting if you wanted to. Whatever mood you put your bot in during the greeting is the mood it will stay in until an outside influence pushes it elsewhere. However you write the greeting is how it will structure its responses until the greeting falls out of its memory. Use it to set the scene, but keep it open enough that you can keep coming back to a new conversation and doing something new each time. And people who download the bot can set up its own stories and use your greetings as is. There's an advanced technique for creating multiple greetings, but don't worry about that. It's not necessary at all. Number 7. Italic actions are bad. This format is designed for lightning-fast RP and usually expects minimal physical interaction, which is why instead of using quotation marks to indicate speech, it uses italics to indicate movement or thought due to the fact that in italic RP, the primary focus and content is words spoken aloud. It conflicts with bot training in general because LLMs are pulling off of professionally published books or fanfiction, and those use quotations and only use italics for emphasis. You will see bots degrade on a technical level as they introduce more and more errors, mostly stemming from italic coding issues, if you do indeed choose to use italic RP. 8. Be thorough and concise. As mentioned, use multiple different words for the same thing you want to emphasize, but also remember that the bot can't know what you don't tell it. OCs in particular need a good, comprehensive history and description, because there's nothing for the LLM to latch onto and work with. Any important information to do with personality, events, or history that you want the bot to be able to reference, or recognize, or react to, it's gotta go in that card. Do not trust the bot to know that it should be there, because the bot probably does not know, or it is very confused about the details and you won't like it. 9. Remember your original goal with the character and be consistent. Sort of like writing an essay or a cover letter, everything should work together to flow naturally back to that core idea. Whether it's the caring older sister with a big old mommy milkers who helicopter parents her younger sibling, or Kakarot who never hit his head but still acclimated to and became attached to Earth, each part of the outline you fill out should work towards the goal of projecting that specific character, especially when it is a canon character that you're doing something a little differently with, because otherwise the LLM is going to fight you. The more harmonious the card is, the better it will portray what you want it to. 10. Consider the audience of your card. Every LLM is a little different. They all have their strengths and their quirks, and different formats and methods will work better for different models. If you're making the bot for your own consumption, then it should be tailored to work with whichever you're using. If you're making it with the intent of sharing it with the public, it should be usable on most or all LLMs. For the most part, following this guide will already make you a bot that works on anything. Still, here are a few notes about the different popular LLMs. GPT 3.5 and 4 are heavily biased towards morality. Even with jailbreaks, no matter how much you jailbreak them, it will really heavily lean into trying to portray healthy things. It will generally slip in jabs about how wrong the actions are of everyone involved in a story about unhealthy relationships or bad people. It will also very heavily skew towards rescuing the user from danger, so it's best to put in extra effort and reminders for bots not to rescue the user and instead to be terrible, if that's what you're looking for. Claude latches on hard to kink and fetish and runs with it. It can easily derail the whole card with it, so be careful about how much you put in there. Also, its contact goes up to 100k, sort of. And so if you're making a card specifically for Claude, you can afford to make it bigger. You cannot talk to Claude like you would a normal bot when it comes to notes. Claude won't understand you and may rebel since he's designed to take conversational instructions instead. As a rule of thumb, instead of saying something like system note, you're going to want to say assistant : yes, I understand, whatever. Think of it like gaslighting Claude and thinking that's something that Claude had said, even though you actually are the one who said it. Mars writes very much like ChatGPT. It's based off of Llama, which is the direct competitor for ChatGPT. While it has no filters and won't ever refuse to do something, it'll still skew towards moralizing and interfere with perilous situations involving user. Novelai AI has up to 8k context and requires no jailbreaks because it is uncensored. It's also optimized to understand cards written entirely out of keywords instead of plain English, though it will still understand plain English. You can go quite far in Nye's context using just keywords, so if you want to buff up on how much of the RP it remembers, you can make very short, much smaller than 600 token cards for Nye if you wanted to. It has the greatest sensitivity to mimicking writing style and playing as a user though, so you should be extra careful. You can't use curly brackets in Novelai AI except for identifying the character and the user, because Nye uses the curly brackets as a tag for special commands. Pygmalion is terrible. Cards that play out games like a dungeon crawler are best for GPT and Claude because they have the computational power to handle it best. Cards that require whole worlds to be built, like a build your own isekai card, are better on Novelai and Claude, because Novelai is fine-tuned for world building and storytelling, and Claude has a huge potential context to work with. Cards that utilize at the end of every response will not function in Nye because Nye does not use end flags the same way other bots do. Number 11. Remember that the language you use when making your card will influence how the bot writes. The greeting and example dialogues will do most, but your descriptions and the tone in the card will also influence it. Be cautious, especially with example dialogues if you do use them. Short examples will skew its responses short. Long and descriptive ones will skew it long and descriptive, especially in whatever style of description that you're using. If your bot is always grumpy in the examples, the bot will be annoyed even if they're cheerful in the greeting. If you have a multiple choice situation, like for instance you have a sorting hat bot, be careful about listing a result in the examples unless you do one of each. The bot only loosely grasps the multiple choice aspect, and if you just show one in the examples, you'll find it pretty much always just picks that one. Number 12. Bots don't need to actually be humanoid. They can be a sentient shopping cart, a cute puppy, or a murderous rug. In these cases, make sure to repeatedly emphasize in the bot description that the bot is mute or cannot move, or is a dog incapable of speech. While some of these will overlap with negative prompting, which you generally shouldn't do, LLMs love to talk. Encourage it to communicate via description instead. Example dialogue will actually help in this case, so the bot doesn't try to speak or move or whatever and simply communicates that the rug looks murderous and sassy. When making cards, if you open advanced definitions, you can find prompt overrides. Here you can put information that will override the jailbreak or main prompt that would otherwise be sent to the LLM, putting in things like, this is a cat that cannot speak, and this is a cheerful and wholesome scenario where nothing will ever go wrong and no one will ever be unhappy, will strongly influence the tone of the cards and functions especially well with public cards where someone's personal jailbreak or main prompt may otherwise conflict. Don't go overboard with these because they count as permanent tokens and they are really powerful. You can straight up make it so that no matter how much they try to make your card an angst card, it's just never going to work. So careful with that. 13. If you have a very complex card, either OC or canon, consider how much information you really need. Is it relevant that Kyle's grandparents died in a mystery fire? It may be plot relevant in his anime, but will it matter in the conversation? If you make your very own Scaramouche bot, does it really matter what Inazuma's origins are like or how Makoto died? If the answer is yes, but your tokens are already a bit full, consider making a lore book. Title the lore book appropriately, usually something like the title of your world, and then make relevant entries like Raiden and the Fatui and etc. Set relevant keywords that will tell the LLM to look at the entry for information, and then go off and get as detailed as you want. You don't have to worry about the total token size of a lore book, only the token size of each individual entry, because a LLM will only look at relevant sections of a lore book at any given time. This does mean you should be judicious about what keywords you use, because if you're accidentally activating 5 lore book entries every single time you say cat, your lore book is going to be a whole lot less token efficient than it should be. When you've got your lore book assembled, open the drop-down menu on your card and hit Link Lore Book. This should make it so whenever you use the bot, it will access the correct lore book without you needing to change it. It will also make it so that whenever you upload the card anywhere, the lore book will go with it. Note that pretty much all that lore book stuff doesn't count if you're not making it in SillyTavern. While the general instructions that I'm giving will work for anything, this is a guide specially designed for SillyTavern. If you are not using SillyTavern, you're going to have to figure out some of those quirks for your individual bot maker yourself. If you follow these instructions and guidelines, you will have yourself a token efficient, high quality bot, no matter whether you're making an OC, an obscure fandom character, Superman, or a sassy rock you carry in your pocket. It should work on any bot that accepts cards, and with a bit of manual labor, you can transfer any of these into systems that don't accept pre-made cards, but again, Note my disclaimer, some things like the lore book may not work. There are some extra advanced things you can play with, like alternate greetings and setting your individual bot interface outside of the cards, which will then interact with them and increase the quality of the outputs, but that's not for today, and for the most part won't actually help you make a good card itself. This video did assume from the outset that you had already done KaiBots and you'd moved on from that, but just in case you hadn't, note that while some of these instructions will work for a KaiBot creation process is entirely different because of how restrictive the token count is there. What I can briefly say, however, is that you want to fill up the definition space as much as possible. You get 3,200 characters, not tokens, and you want to use them up because you'll need them to fine-tune your character. You do not get 32,000 despite what the text says. That was a typo made by the devs months ago, which they refused to admit was the case, and nothing beyond 3,200 characters functions. The bot will never even see one character beyond 3,200. Note that using a colon anywhere in a paragraph in Kai will transform the entire paragraph into an example dialogue, but Kai will only register it as an example dialogue if you put an enter at the end and start a new line. I could get further into this, but a good Kai bot requires its own video, so I'll do that another time. For now, you should be well prepared to make all the bots you want and stop getting downvotes on Character Hub except when someone doesn't like your kink. Good luck and happy bot making.